Because you've got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
That's your knowing mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on a Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome, everyone, to the 579th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. You can find us every Sunday at 8 o'clock UK, exactly the time when the Euros are starting. Imagine that. 3 o'clock Eastern, United States, 12 o'clock Pacific time. I don't expect there to be much happening this episode. At this point in time, it seems to be an episode of Maddie on boxing. So we'll try to get through this as best we can. This might end up having lower figures than our good old Chicks with Dig episodes. But let's kick it off with Philadelphia and Jerome "Bouts" Ennis taking out David Avenation in the corner, stopping it after the end of the fifth round. Avenation just he stood in there. He threw some hard shots. He landed a few of his own in there when he could, and but Bouts is just talented. He knows how to put them together. He is so incredibly strong. And in the fifth round, he swung this long overhand left and just deposited Avenation onto the canvas. And to be fair to Avenation, he fought on the rest of that round. He really is as tough as they come. He earned his paycheck 100%. But it was not to be for him as Bouts moves forward. Now with Matchroom, he's a big guy. They did good numbers though. They put it in a larger venue. They managed to move over 10,000 tickets. So he definitely has a lot of pull, with the hometown crowd there, and we'll see how it goes for Ennis. I'm definitely curious to see what they might be able to come up with him at DAZN as far as opposition. It's so hard to tell right now with PBC falling apart and wondering where those chips might fall and who is protected, who isn't. Alexis Rocha is fighting next week or the week after, I believe, and I could see Rocha as an opponent for Bouts. I think he still has decent rankings, even though he lost a while back. So I wouldn't put that one past him. That is a possibility for sure. But it's I don't know. It's after guys like Crawford and Spence vacate a division, it just kind of opens it up to entirely new fighters and entirely new possibilities. And we don't exactly know where it's going to end up at this point in time. So it's tough to tell. And again, I can't harp enough that where that PBC talent ends up at, how many people they might be able to keep at the end of the day, how many people go elsewhere. It's going to be interesting because they were such a driver in the welterweight division. They had just so many of these American fighters that have carried the division for a long time. And yes, that was some sort of an oven dinger. Getting my chimichangas out, although I probably won't get a chance to eat them since no one here is here to talk with me. So my chimichangas will sit idle on the table while we get through this podcast. You guys know the sacrifices we put in here at Boxing Asylum are definitely many. And I see it's still scoreless. Not even into the 10th minute here for you guys. So anyhow, so that was an interesting, to see Boots be able to get that sell there. Let's see here. Martin Mulligan says, "Evening, Matty. Boots is a real talent and great in both stances." Yeah, absolutely. He did some good work right and left in there. Let's see here. Beat Bop Boop says, "Thought Boots look excellent. Some tasty fights down the line to be made." And I think some of those might be at 154. I hope that Ortiz comes off looking good with a W against Bahuchik. I would like to see Virgil Ortiz and Boots do the dance before everything wraps up. But we'll see if that if that actually ends up going down or not. It could be a long way off, but I we keep saying, how long can he make the weight? How long can he make the weight? Boots still seems to be making 147 pounds comfortably. So I don't know. Let's see here. John Trounson says, Boots being at Matchroom gives Eddie a cash-out option for Connor. I've thought the same thing. I was arguing that with our good friend, Mr. Donnie Baseball, last night, and I think at this point Eddie just might want off of the Connor Ben train and get him a little payday on the back end. And there seems to be enough name recognition for Connor Ben, given the scandal more than what he has accomplished in the ring. So I think there's some way to sell that, and it would be kind of fun to watch the little drug sheet get knocked around. Can I see a fight with Crawford in the future? That would take a couple of things happening. I don't know for sure that. Oh my God! Thank God, Steve. Is this the Steve Wellings joining us?
Where is everybody, Matty?
Thank you for coming to save me, Steve. Holy God, this is terrible. It's just me talking to, thank God for a few people in the chat. But it's been a lot, but thank you. We've got the online editor of Boxing News, Steve Wellings, with us for the first time in a while, saving my white ass. Thank you, Steve. So
you're okay. How are you, Matty?
I'm hanging in, man. I'm hanging in. I'm just watching this game and pulling for Spain since all of my panelists are watching and pulling for England. I believe in the quality of the show over a national, or nationalities like great pride. So I'm all about Spain in this one.
You're a brave man, Matty. All these great Spanish fighters from the past, I'm thinking Kiko Martinez, Sandor Martin, John Fernandez is fighting Dalton Smith coming up soon as well. All the Spanish greats. But yeah, I have the match on in the background as well. So I'll join you.
Yeah, just be happy that their footballers are far better than their boxers, or this wouldn't be a game.
Yeah, exactly.
But what were your thoughts on the Boots fight last night? It was kind of short, sweet. He got rid of Avanation about the same time that Crawford did. Took a few shots along the way. Didn't really seem buzzed, but it was a nice homecoming fight. Right, good replacement at the right time, and Avanation at least didn't come to fight. He wasn't going all negative.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we knew what Avanation was going to bring to the fight. He was going to come along and he was going to have a good go. I actually thought that Cody Crowley was a better opponent. I know that Boots himself, and it's part of the promotion, isn't it? They said, I think Avanesian's going to be a better opponent. He's going to come to fight, which basically meant he was going to come and stand in front of Boots and allow himself to be battered, because we know Avanesian, he has a few nuances to his game, but he's seen better days and he got busted up, really. But I thought Cody Crowley would have been a better opponent because we haven't seen what he has to offer at this level before. We've seen Avanesian in the past against Terence Crawford, who's obviously the elite of the elite. We saw Avanesian against Kavalauskas before, got stopped as well. Both very good guys, but we knew his level. And the fact that he's a lot older now said to me that he wasn't going to come along and produce too many surprises. So I would have rather have seen Cody Crowley in there, first of all. Secondly, I think Ennis needs to stay active. That's the main thing. Being with the PBC isn't benefiting a lot of fighters now. I've sort of done a bit of a 360 turn on them myself, and they just don't keep people active enough. And also, he wasn't actually signed to the PBC, which is a problem. So Al Heyman never really put the chips fully in on Ennis. He was kind of on the periphery. He was here, then he was gone for a year, then he was back again. He's clearly a guy who doesn't make great decisions. He'd signed with Cameron Duncan, he'd signed with this Middendorf guy, he'd signed with all these different entities, which meant the PBC couldn't fully back him, is my understanding. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, for all of their faults, will back him. Got him a homecoming fight. Looked like everybody was having a great time. And now Eddie needs to get him out again, which I think he will. That is one good thing about Eddie. He will get you paid. He will get you the fights. As for the next fight, if Crawford gets past Madrimov, which I expect him to do so, although I think it will be a tough fight, then yeah, the old Turkey Al Sheikh's been on the phone. Eddie seems pleased. Get Crawford against Ennis. It's a fight we want to see. Somebody who's going to hit him hard and often and see how he reacts then. I think as well, someone just put a message in the chat there. Cody wasn't in the right frame, though. Cody wasn't in fight shape mentally. Yeah, I saw
there was some with his eyes.
Yeah, there was. And I think what Diesel's saying here as well, that, correct me if I'm wrong, Diesel, put the eye thing aside, the physical issues, and he maybe wasn't right mentally either. He is a very emotional guy. I saw the press conference when they announced the fight. It was a bit of an unsavory press conference, actually, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, did somebody yell something about his parents being dead?
Yeah, his dad had took his own life, and Cody was obviously relaying this, and someone, I think, shouted at the audience, "You should take your own life too." And then Cody's manager says, "Look, let's get a grip on this." And Eddie said, "Calm down, everybody." Which was obviously a disgusting thing to say, but Cody seems like an emotional, kind of heart on his sleeve guy. But what I mean is, if he's not mentally right, Diesel, absolutely, he shouldn't have been in the fight at all. But I just felt he might bring something to the table a bit different. We didn't quite know how he would react at world level, whereas Avanesian, we knew what he would bring to the table. And he brought exactly that, to be honest with you. One thing as well, Matty, I had on my mind was Ennis. I don't think that Ennis is a natural talker. I think a lot of his banter is quite cringe, a bit forced, which is, not everybody's made to sort of step up on the stage like we are and talk about boxing every week. But he's got the eyes on him now. It'd be interesting to see how he responds mentally, Ennis. I think he's a world champion. He's an aspiring star. He's not tucked away on Showbox anymore with all these fringe promoters at the Blue Horizon. Different expectations and different pressures for him. And he dealt with it well last night. But as he moves up and he's got the eyes of the world on him against a Crawford or somebody of that nature, be interesting to see how he reacts, because I do think a lot of his banter is contrived and he's not a natural. He fights like a showman and he presents himself as a showman, but I'm not so sure he is.
Well, I'd rather have somebody who fights better than they talk, rather than the alternative. He's. You do have to be able to sell a fight. That definitely comes into play with everything. But ultimately, like you got to be able to fight. And if you are a really quality fighter, even if you can't like purely sell a fight, eventually people catch on. You catch fire, and it's just a matter of time. Because. I mean, when you consider the fact, like, look how many people have managed to get a foothold in the United States when they could, barely speak English or didn't speak it at all. If you don't speak English, what shit are you really talking at the end of the day? And, they still end up as main event fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a lot of talkers over the years, haven't we? And they haven't been able to back it up in the ring. But if Ennis can keep the performances going like the way he has, then who cares what he talks like? I'm just thinking more a personality thing, possibly. So maybe someone could get under his skin in the future. Or, Bozy will stand up and defend him. So he hasn't got too much to worry about. We've seen that. But I just wonder if someone can sort of match him intellectually or get under his skin or talk a bit of trash to him and take him out of his comfort zone. In a mental capacity, I wonder how he reacts. That was more I was talking about, the fact that he doesn't strike me as a natural. Diesel again there, that was a rusty boots though, and he still looks sensational, 100%. Same against Roman Villa, wasn't it? He'd been out for a while, came back. He'd only fought Delorme before that, and he beat the shit out of Villa. And another one of the guys, just quickly, Matty, had said in the chat, I think earlier, about possibly cashing out Conor Benn against Ennis, and I think Eddie will probably look to do something like that now because the Conor Ben saga can't go on forever. Although I was thinking one level below actually last night. Whenever Jaleel Major Hackett, who was a fighter I'm very high on, as you well know, was beating on old Pete Dobson for the first 5 or 6 rounds, I thought that it might be Hackett they would feed Ben to. What a low opinion of Conor I have, but maybe Ennis would be more of his level.
Yeah, I again, like I said, he's got enough of a name, more so for the scandal than for what he's done in the ring. But at least he'll sell a fight
as well. Yeah.
Well, I think some people like tune in just to see get his ass kicked.
Well, some people tune in because of the name, simple as that. They remember the Ben, the Eubank, the Collins, the Watson era, and he's sort of living vicariously. His dad's name is like running vicariously through him to this day. That's why the Ben Eubank issue fight that was made was such a big fight before obviously Conor popped hot. That name carries a lot of weight and a lot of currency in the UK still. So there's the papers and all and casual fight fans or people who watched the fights 20, 30 years ago will be interested in Conor Ben simply because of his surname.
Well, now I wonder how much that might even cool off as the years tick on by, because the prime of that era you're talking about is, now about 30 years ago.
I suppose, but we haven't got much to cling on to here, Matty. So we'll cling on to
here you and I are talking to ourselves and 11 other people. It's one of those days as the world watches on. But yeah, we'll see where Boots goes from here. Could be excited. Could be exciting to see where that might end up. But it's all a matter of how they match. I just get a hunch that Alexis Rocha is going to be in the makes. As he is on the he is getting ready to fight here shortly, and that's both fighting. I don't know if they're both Matchroom, but they're both the Zone at the very least. So
yeah, no, Rocha's golden boy, isn't he? And you would think that the fact they were both the Zone would make fights easier to happen, but the Zone, as they've showed many times since their inception. Particularly the Canelo Golovkin fight, which would be a lot more difficult to make than Ennis against Rocha. They can't seem to make in-house fights very well, so I wouldn't hold your breath on that one.
Yeah, I am but a dreamer. There, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Gets me into trouble. But you mentioned, we'll go to on. You mentioned Jaleel Hackett taking on Peter Dobson, beating him 97-93 twice, 96-94, letting Dobson get back into the fight in the later half, though. It was definitely a tale of kind of two halves there because the first 5 rounds, Hackett looked $1 million, pure blue chipper. Towards the end, not so much. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty similar to you, really. I've liked Hackett since I first saw him fighting under the Mayweather thing. He was sort of he hadn't got the fanfare that Kamel Moten had when he turned pro because of obviously all the videos and stuff. But someone put me onto him when he was a decorated amateur. I think he'd won like 11 national titles. I'm not sure about the American amateur system, but way back when he signed with Mayweather, someone said to me, "Have a look at this Hackett. He looks really, really good." And then he kind of just faded away. I think he fought in one of those Red Owl boxing shows recently or something like that. Anyway, it looked pretty dark. I was hoping someone would turn the lights on so we could actually see what was going on. But thankfully, Eddie's turned the lights on in his career, signed him up, and now we can see him in Philadelphia. And as you said, first 5 or 6 rounds look brilliant. He's a tough old fella, that Dobson. He showed it against Ben, and I thought he was going to fold. Hackett was whipping those left hooks to the body, and I thought he's going to get him out of here. This is going to be a statement. And then as he tired, Dobson came back into the fight, and like you said, 97-93 times 2 and a 96-94 as well. And that was the fight Hackett needed, really. Maybe blasting out Dobson wouldn't have been the best thing for his career. He needed those good, hard 10 rounds, and he needed those last 4 rounds to tighten up the fight and to get him that experience. But yeah, he's going to be a problem for anybody, I think. He's only 21, puncher, real good body puncher as well. And Pistol Pete, I'd like to see him get another chance as well because he's as tough as old boots. And excuse me, he's done his bit here. So yeah, I am a fan of Hackett. I think he will go all the way.
Yeah, he's going to he's going to be all right. I don't know if he's going to go all the way, but this is a good learning fight. I think he realized, that he's going to have to work on taking care of his gas tank. You can't just try to overwhelm everybody that you're going in there against. And that's always a good lesson, but we'll see. He could definitely be part of the rebuilding of this welterweight division since Spence and Crawford have left. And Dobson is a good little trial horse. He does a few clever things to take some steam off the shots. He knows how to survive. A few wrinkles in there. He's definitely a guy who will he'll take a few O's before we're done with Peter Dobson. Let me say that.
Diesel saying there, Hackett reminds me of Jermaine Taylor. That could be a good little comparison, and you could look at that two ways, couldn't you? You could think Jermaine Taylor, bad gas tank, went absolutely off the rails towards the end of his career, but when he was on, he was hot, man. Remember the B-Hop fight, and even the first Pavlik fight remains one of my favourite fights of all time. Taylor had a hell of a jab. Froch as well, great fight. We've done that on Punches from the past. He was a good puncher, just hadn't quite got the gas tank to see him through. So Hackett could be compared, I suppose, to worse people than Jermaine Taylor, deficiencies and all.
Yeah, just try not to go down the same path as Jermaine, or you'll end up with beady eyes and in jail. Fucking weird. But anyways, let's see here. Just go skip on through this undercard. Sky Nicholson, wide win over Diana Vargas, just peppering her with jabs. If she would have started letting loose of that left hand earlier, I really don't have a doubt that she would have been able to take out Vargas, who was definitely as tough as these gals come, but just barely skilled. I haven't had a chance to really take a look at her record, but I'm wondering who these 19 women were that she was able to defeat in her career. But they definitely probably aren't at the top of the top. What did you think about Eddie's the center of his fantasies?
Center of a few people's fantasies, I think. She's a good boxer. She can't punch is the problem, and the level of opposition just isn't there. As you mentioned with this Diana's, what was her name again? Diana Vargas.
Yeah.
She had a lovely head of hair. I was a fan of her hair at the weigh-in, and then it obviously got put away for fight night. But, I mean, it just shows the lack of depth, I suppose, in some of the divisions. Sky, if she had any dig about her, she would have got rid of her. She's fast, she can move, she's athletic. They were talking about the Serrano fight afterwards, and about, I think Sean Porter referenced Serrano's foot movement isn't the best, and maybe Sky could have some kind of joy there. I'm not as well versed as you to comment on that, but I thought that Vargas, I think she was poor, and and if she's like sort of world level, I know she was only brought in as a kind of, she might not have even been a mandatory, she might have been just a voluntary, I don't know, but
yeah,
like
just
you said,
someone ranked.
Yeah, who someone ranked who they've bought in to give Sky a payday and you know, get her out there third from the top, and why not? Good luck to her, but Vargas was poor. You know, who were these girls that she's beating? I don't know.
Well, you got to think, like, I haven't looked on BoxRec to see like how many female fighters fight in the 126-pound division, but it's you know, a fraction of the men. So if you're top 15 in a division, you can be brought in for a voluntary defense. If the opponent gets that opportunity for a voluntary. But if you're only talking out of 150 fighters in the division and you're ranked top 15 with one sanctioning body, well, you might be in the top 10% of fighters in that division. But there's also a chance that, you know, you're in like somewhere, you know, in the bottom 50% too, depending on how the rankings spread out and the fighters that are in there. It's kind of a shit show until there's better fighters. But Sky definitely is one of them. I'll tell you this much, Steve. I know women's boxing isn't much for our listeners, but I don't think the Serrano fight is going to happen. I just run it through your head. Serrano's moving up to 140 pounds for the rematch with Katie Taylor. Another huge money fight. Tyson Paul undercard. Can you see her going back down 3 divisions to fight Sky Nicholson?
Oh, right enough. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, does it? I only went off Sean Porter mentioning that because of my lack of knowledge with the female thing.
It's because they don't know any other female fighters.
Yeah, right enough. She's not going to do that.
No, I wouldn't imagine. So we'll see what happens. But
quick one as well, Matty. Sorry, Vargas. 19 out of her 19 wins, 8 of them had no wins. 8 of her victims hadn't won a fight.
There you go. I think that tells the tale. They just, well, you got to think about it. Like in some of these countries, if somebody tells you, "Hey, you put on a pair of shorts and a tank top, we'll give you $100 to get knocked around for 8 minutes."
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like some of them were 0-1, but some of them were like 0-16, 0-18, 0-16-1, 0-18, 0-8, 0-21. You know what I mean? So they've like really never won a fight.
To be fair, you know, you got a lot of those guys that end up with the prospects in the UK or the up and comers who end up with a career where they're like 15-98. So yeah, it's, you know, everyone has their own road to travel, and some of us travel a road of getting struck in the head.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see here. Khalil Ko absolutely dominating Kwame Ritter. He seems to be a potentially solid 175-pound prospect. Did you catch that one, Steve?
I did, yes. Ko was originally supposed to fight Manuel Gallegos. I think that was the last I heard. Don't know what happened to him, but he was being brought up from super middleweight. I checked out Ritter's record, and much like Miss Vargas, he had a lot of knockout wins on his record. Again, he's only fought 1, 2, 3, 4 and a debutant of his 11 fights, 11 wins. Had never had a win or was making his debut. And then another 2 guys only had 1 win. So, I mean, that's just as bad as Vargas. And they're all taking place in, looks like Colombia or Venezuela kind of flag there. So I looked at that before and kind of knew what he was bringing to the table. And I thought he'd have a good swing, and he did. And Ko looks good, actually. I've seen him before. I think he has a draw on his record. Who was that against? Let me see. It was an early draw. Can forget about that. I know he's had troubles outside the ring. If he can get himself on point and straightened out, both in the ring and out, I think he's going to be a problem for anybody, Ko. I really like the look of him. He's calling out Joshua Boazzi. Good luck with that. They can't seem to get Boazzi in the ring, but yeah, Ko looks good to me. What did you think of him?
I was tuned in right after that, so I was just faking my way through that, hoping you had seen it. Well done.
Okay. I've watched the entire Top Rank card as well, so don't worry. I'm here to save you, brother.
I'm going to head there. I saw a good chunk of that one as well. And you talk about pullouts in that fight changing that card up a little bit. Well, you had a problem with Janibek Alimhanallah. Ended up dehydrated on Friday, so he was unable to make his main event. So that was off there. So here we are. If you see the title of the podcast this week, 2024 with Tevin Farmer in a main event. But you know what, Steve? God love the guy. He came in there and he gave it a good rip. He still has some tools, despite being, that all the issues he's had and some of the competition he's been coming back against in his kind of slow build up, whatever the hell you want to call it. They had all the crazy crap that happened with the Mickey Bay fight being canceled, but he gave Muratalla some problems. And if Muratalla hadn't turned it up those last 3 rounds, he would have lost this one. Also a point deduction in there for holding, which I could go either way on. I like Taylor as a ref, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of the shit that I've seen, especially even in recent memory. But I was really impressed with this one. Good learning fight for Muratalla against Farmer, and he made some adjustments, Steve. Not the best performance, but he made some adjustments, and he pulled out the W.
Yep, I agree with your assessment there. I like Tevin Farmer. I've always had a soft spot for him because whenever we went over for the 2 Carl Frampton fights against Leo Santa Cruz, he was on the undercard of at least one of them, maybe both. I think it was just the one of them. He fought Ivan Redkach. He outboxed Redkach for 10 rounds, but beforehand, they were pushing the Farmer story. He'd had bad management early in his career. I think he'd been shot in the hands or something ridiculous around that time, and he was going for a bad way. And he's really turned his career
so
around.
hard it knocked his eye over to one side.
Exactly. He got wonky eyes, man. The poor fella hadn't got much going for him. But I watched him outbox Redkach that night. I was really impressed with him. And then I went back to Boston. I went to Boston in 2018 because James Tennyson fought him for the IBF title. I was obviously knew Tennyson and was reporting locally and that. And Tevin, again, saw him live and in person, did a really good job, broke down James Tennyson to the body and defeated him. So I've seen Tevin fight twice live. So I do have a bit of a soft spot for him. And he seems like a genuinely good guy who's had a bit of a tough life. But what'd you say?
You went away for 4 seconds there.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, yeah, you're perfectly fine now. I have no idea what happened.
Oh, that's okay. Disappearing off is one thing, but when there's only 2 of us, it creates a bit of a problem.
True, very true.
So yeah, anyway, I was just saying about Tevin Farmer. He was bought in, and I think he's going to adopt this role now. I know they were talking about him having knockouts and stuff like that in his last few fights, but they were against kind of journeyman opponents. He's a bit of a world-class gatekeeper now. He's lost 6 times. Muratalla, I thought the first 5 or 6 rounds was very even, and it shows more about Muratalla's maybe ceiling and the limitations that he has, which we saw against the South African guy last time as well, than maybe what Farmer's going to do. Farmer was really messing him around. And I thought Tim Bradley made a good point, actually, Matty. In round 8, I didn't like the point deduction. Not because, first of all, I thought it might be affecting the cards, which it didn't, but it would affect Farmer's mindset. It's like, oh, you're up against it already. You're going to get against a prospect on an away card. Everything's set up for him to win, and all of a sudden you've had a point taken away from you, and then everything seems like it's stacked against you. And the momentum of the fight almost would sway in Muratalla's favour. And I think he took over from that point. It gave Muratalla as well the sort of boost that he needed. And I know that Thomas Taylor had warned him in the past, but I don't think he'd warned him often enough and vocally enough to then suddenly take a point. I thought that was a bit egregious from Taylor. I don't think it was necessary. But the fact that, 95, 94, bit close. I think 96, 93 was about right. Muratalla, he's a good fighter. He's decent. He's solid. He's dependable. But he's a bit like an Edgar Berlanga type of guy. He's obviously hasn't got the punch power, but I don't think he's going to pull up too many trees, man. You could see the likes of Shakur, for example, just toying with him and running around the ring away from him. Tank punches too hard. Zapado give him, a lot of trouble. I just think he's too one-dimensional to face up to those guys. And fair play to him. He's doing his thing. He's a bit of a ticket seller and that. But yeah, I wouldn't have too higher hopes for him, to be honest, Matty.
And as the panel discussed last week a bit, it's the idea that Top Rank has a whole lot of talent at 135 pounds, whole lot of fights that can be made, but they just keep Bob just keeps diverting them away from each other. Like, why, Muratalla against Keyshawn Davis, shit or get off the pot, I figure it out. Alon Sanchez coming up, put him in against one of those guys. Like, they're all very hungry fighters, and they need to stop acting like a single defeat is the end of these guys' career. Let two hot prospects go at it, and if for some reason, one of them gets stopped or just takes a loss, onwards and upwards for one of them, and the other one can retool. How was the fight? Was it competitive? Did they look good? What's the level of the guy they lost to? There is just so much to be made at 135 that Top Rank has in the palm of their hands, and they just refuse to do it.
I wonder whether they've built him such a point now at 21-0. They think we're going to kind of try and move him into a vacant shot or move him into a shot against somebody without having to put him in against a Keyshawn, given that they probably look at Keyshawn and say he's had 10, 11 fights less than Muratalla. So if he just picks off Muratalla now with all that investment, I'm just thinking how they might think. And then
think they might get him the Baranchek fight?
Yeah, something like that maybe. And then feed him to somebody, quote unquote, whoever that might be, once they've got that world title payoff. Because if he loses to Keyshawn now, and we've all seen his limitations, what are they going to do with him after that? He's had 20 odd fights. They've got no payoff. He's been beat by a guy with 10 less fights, and he's sort of struggling around in no man's land. I think they'll try and get him a title first and then cash him out.
Yeah, I think that it will probably go somewhere along those lines, because if there's one thing I think I've just kind of just come to the conclusion of, the one goal that the promoters have is to keep the title in-house. That's really all they care about. That's why they don't work across the street and shit like that. They want to keep the title in-house because it gives them a chance to sell the fight.
Especially WBO titles. Top Rank love them, don't they? I mean, they're calling Shakur 3. His whole premise has been built off him being a 3-weight world champion and he's a fantastic fighter. There's no doubt about it. But realistically, who's he beaten?
Valdez was definitely. I think Valdez, you'd have to say, is his best win of his career at this point.
Yeah, exactly. You look at guys like Valdez, Conceição, they're good, solid wins. But I mean, they're not the whole Top Rank thing as well. I wonder, just on a side note here that came to my mind, they're in the last year apparently of their ESPN deal. And at the moment, they don't look like a company to me that's going out all guns blazing, trying to get a re-sign. It's almost as if they've been told, look, we ain't re-signing you. Or, why are they putting on Lopez against Claggett? They're putting on Shakur against Hartunian. These are decent fights. Last night was supposed to be Janabek against Mikhailovic. They're okay. Like, it's not amazing, is it, compared to having the likes of Lomachenko, Pacquiao and all that headlining cards right at the beginning? I know every week can't be a banger. That's not what I'm saying. But it feels like a company that's like, right, ESPN aren't renewing, similar to when they finished the HBO deal and then they went to ESPN in the first place. I don't know. I think they just play ready to close shop, man. They're cleaning the windows with that sort of sugar soap that you put on, those big swirls.
Like in a lame duck presidency. Doesn't really matter. Like, it's almost over. I think that's disappointing too, because I wouldn't be shocked if there is not one single boxing event on ESPN as soon as the Top Rank contract is over. I wouldn't be shocked if that is the end. and that would be.
I think everything's going to end up on DAZN. I do. I know that's a bit of we never would have thought that, would we, a few years ago when we were laughing at Eddie? But it looks like it's going that way. And if Saudi turn around and say DAZN, they're our guys, like they did when the 5x5, it was either that one or the one before, or the Fury. It might have been Fury used it. One of them, DAZN, was the main broadcaster, and all the other feeds, Sky, ESPN, TNT, whatever it was, all came off that DAZN foundation broadcast. And I wonder whether DAZN will be the way the Saudis will say, look, we're going to DAZN, they're going to be our men, and everybody sort of morphs in there eventually.
Well, and you still got that PBC Amazon thing going on there, and that's been lackluster. What happened to the cards that were supposed to not be pay-per-views on Amazon?
3 cards, pay-per-views. They were going to get a secondary broadcaster the way they did before with Showtime and then Fox to sort of get those smaller cards on. They've done nothing, so they've got guys just dying on the vine here, and the ones with who aren't in the ironclad contracts, who have the brains and the management to get them out, are getting them out to the likes of Eddie, Oscar, or Bob or whatever. But at the moment, I mean, it doesn't look like it's Amazon in control, apart from they're the people who are putting the shows through their platform. Like, it's not an Amazon production; it's a PBC in-house production, which is being broadcast through Amazon. So it doesn't all look as glittery as it did when they first, we're going to Amazon. I don't think so.
Yeah, and we'll see how this Netflix thing ends up going. Jake Paul's this fight coming up, I think this weekend, is going to be a DAZN pay-per-view. He's supposed to be in Netflix, I think, against Tyson in November. Which, God, for Taylor Serrano too, I might actually have to go to that. That's in consideration.
Is that back in Texas again, where it was originally supposed to be?
I think where it is. I think so, because I think it's on a Friday night too, so they're trying to keep it away from all the football going on and shit like that. So
that's right.
So it'll be it could be interesting. But I mean, that thing holds. I mean, you saw Pacquiao Claudio was there. It holds, like over 70,000 people, I think, when it's fully opened up, if not more.
Be good night, though.
Yeah, so there'll be no shortage of tickets for a reasonable price. But anyhow, that's how interesting Farmer Muratalla was. This is where we ended up. I'll tell you, I think the fight of the weekend was on this card though, Steve. Ruben Villa against Suleiman Sagawa. It was a kind of close decision victory, but these guys were winging it. They landed some bombs, and Sagawa was a pretty strong underdog in this one, and he pulled out the victory in this 126-pound contest. And what's amazing is he weighed in just slightly over the junior featherweight limit for this fight. So he was basically a weight class below Villa and still just went in there and just whooped up on him.
Yeah, I'm going to have to add very little commentary on this one because I'm looking down the card and this is the actual only fight I saw every fight on the card except for that one for some reason.
That's a shame.
I know. I watched them all for some reason. The means and methods, that one just did not appear. I wasn't able to watch it, but I was surprised actually because, like you said, that was the first thing I noticed. He was half a pound above 122. And Villa, I've always rated him. I think he's a very good fighter. He's a very good amateur boxer. He was a good slick southpaw. Lost to Navarrete. I've made this point on the pod many times before. The cards reflect this as well. He outboxed Navarrete for every round that he wasn't getting dropped in. And that was the only reason he lost. And I thought that was a one-off. He was going to come back.
Kind of like Endam against Peter Quillen.
Peter Quillen, exactly. And Bradley made the point as well. I was watching the early ESPN preliminary bouts, and they were talking about the Villa card, about 2 fights in, coming up. What do you think about Villa? Oh, this is just a keep busy fight for him. Top ranker keeping him busy. Bradley actually said that towards a world title fight, and this is just to get the rust off and make sure he's got another 10 rounds under his belt. And I agreed with Bradley as well completely. Nobody expected him to. Sorry, just in the football there, to lose this fight to this Sagawa guy with the four losses and the one draw on his record. So yeah, unfortunately that was the only one I didn't see, but I saw all the other ones.
Yeah, I would take 40 minutes out of your week to catch up on that one. That was definitely a worthy fight. Kind of caught me by surprise. Let's see here. Let's see.
Jonathan Lopez, quick shout out, Matty 15-0, man. He finished off this Padilla with a cracker of a body shot, and they said that as an amateur he beat Abdullah Mason. and I've put the Wellings stamp of approval on Abdullah Mason. He's my next. He's up there with Hackett and Javonta as one of my favourite fighters. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I know I haven't been on the pod to sing his praises much, but especially that card last week when you had Keyshawn, Shakur, him, that Foster, Conceição fight, he stole the show by blasting out LeBron. And this Lopez apparently beat him as an amateur, although Bradley then also said that Lopez has fought on ESPN before and hasn't looked too hot, so he may be a bit of a sort of hot and cold fighter.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, but some fighters just need to develop as well, and it's so I don't know. He definitely caught some attention there, and they have a lot of people around 130 pounds. There's a lot you can move this kid into. 15 wins, so 16 now. Charlie Sheehy on this one, getting a victory over Ricardo Quiros. This one was a pretty fun fight. Quiros definitely gave as good as he got in this one, made Sheehy work for the victory, and it's definitely going to be one of those fights that was essential in developing the young prospect.
Well, possibly. I'm going to say this is the third time I've seen Sheehy now, and I don't think he's going anywhere, man. That's my unfortunate assessment of him. I mean, he's going to do okay for himself. I'm not saying he's going to be like drinking special brew under a bridge or anything like that, but as a boxer, I know he's well supported, he's well thought of. Again, West Coast amateur, and a lot of people are high on him, but he's too easy to hit. I don't know whether he's too enthusiastic. He has a nice jab. In the fight I watched previously, he worked his jab lovely for the first couple of rounds, and then he got into this motion where he was doing the same thing over and over again. And I just thought, he looks a bit repetitive. That's fine. We're watching this time. He was taking shots early, which you're going to do. It's a boxing match. His face was all busted up and bloody. A couple of the cards had him winning by only 2 points. I just think these are danger signals for a guy who's now 10-0. Missed the weight last time as well. He's supposed to fight a few weeks ago. I think he missed the 135 limit. And now he's up at 140. Too many danger signs for me, Matty, unfortunately. I just think that anyone who can hit hard and often with a bit of speed and a bit of power is going to absolutely smash his face in, unfortunately. So, yeah, I don't have high hopes for old Mr. Shea.
Poor guy. Let's see here. What else did I see on there? I saw Art Barrera Jr. Getting a wide unanimous decision against Javier Miral, who definitely came to fight, got dropped twice, but he just refused to give up. He a tough bastard. Barrera had to definitely work the whole way, but he's got an arsenal, Steve. He definitely has some great punches. The defense could sure be tightened up, though.
Yeah, Barrera, like the look of him, as you say, he's going to be an exciting kind of guy. I liked his opponent, Javier Mayoral. I liked his cornerman, actually. I put the video of him in earlier, Martino Martinez or something to call him, but he was good value in between. The Sky commentary would have flipping had an apoplectic kind of fit if they'd have heard all them F-bombs, but ESPN don't seem to be too bothered because they sent it to the corner and we were listening to him having a go at Mayoral, but that was a good test for Barrera. I like the look of him. Garcia had a lot of fighters. He seems to be well in with Top Rank at the moment. And these guys, they're going to have to separate themselves soon because a lot of the times, as I've said before, in these undercards, they all merge into one. And then you start to see their individual performances, weight classes, personalities shine through. And Barrera's one of those ones, like Alan Garcia as well. Zamaron, who was on, I think I saw Zamaron before in a DAZN undercard. They start to separate themselves and we start to see who's half decent and who's not.
Absolutely. And that's all I saw from that card, I think, Steve. What else might have caught your eye?
I'm trying to remember. Israel Mercado beat Donjel Haynes. Mercado, Bradley said he's too old to make a difference at world level. He's already had a draw and a loss on his record. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to make any great shakes, but he might be a good opponent at some point. Albert Gonzalez, stopped Conrad Martinez. That fight became uncompetitive from about the third round, and it's just a case of would Martinez, who looked a bit like a Poundland Nico Ali Walsh, actually, would he get through the fight? Because he was getting battered to the body, and they were like throwing him out to try and get him through the 6 rounds. Couldn't make it. Stopped the fight in the end. And Zamaron won a unanimous decision over Michael Bracamontes. Yeah, it was a good competitive fight, that. 1 round to Bracamontes. Zamaron looked okay. Didn't use his height and reach advantages as best as he could, and Garcia was sort of telling him off for leaning in. He came in at 127, so yeah, I'd say probably featherweight will be his limit. But yeah, it wasn't a bad little card, actually. And obviously, it was supposed to be Janabek on the main event against this Mikhailovic. They brought Mikhailovic into the studio, and he was chatting away, seemed like a bit of a nice guy, character and all. But I suppose what's Janabek going to do next just to close out this show? Is he too tight at the weight? Did he crash the weight? He hasn't fought before this year, 7 months in. Inactivity, the killer, man, trying to get those pounds off when you're not in the gym all the time. naturally fighting, it's difficult for you. So is he a victim of an activity, or is he just too tight for the weight? If so, he's going to have to move up to super middleweight. And then, I don't know, me and you are going to have to start fighting for middleweight titles, because he's the only kind of shining light at the moment, following on from Triple G with those two belts, because the division is absolutely dead.
Yeah, Adamas looks good at times, but not always. That's
I don't know. He's hit and miss, and he's quite unorthodox. He can punch. I thought Gaucher gave him a decent fight. Just not sure, man. It's hard. Shiraz, it's prime for someone like a Shiraz to come through and maybe take over and grab a couple of belts, like Janabek did.
It'd be interesting, and that's why I say after Madrimov, I don't see why Crawford couldn't pick up a belt at 160 if he looks good at 154 and beats Madrimov. You just keep marching up and making that argument that you want the Canelo fight.
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, let's see here. I did not catch this fight, but I hear it was a hell of an ass whipping. There was another Barrera in action in Nicaragua, but unfortunately his opponent was a 37-year-old Chocolatito Gonzalez, who still apparently has a whole lot left in the tank, because he beat the snot out of this guy from everything I hear. Did you catch this Nicaraguan belt on Friday?
Yep, I did. I watched it. It was okay. Barrera came out throwing bombs for the first couple of rounds or so and looked like he was going to make an argument of it. And then Chocolatito just wore him down to the body, really. I'm saying this off the top of my head. I think he dropped him in the 8th round with a body shot, dropped him again in the 9th. The commentary team were the most fun things in the last 2 rounds. They were really outraged that the referee wasn't stopping the fight. I'm on the Smoger kind of things myself. So even though Barrera wasn't really going to win the fight, I wasn't that bothered, to be honest. I mean, I've seen people in worse conditions, but the commentary team are going wild, saying, "What the hell is this referee doing, man? Get this guy out of here, he's done," and all this. And eventually the referee stopped it in the 10th round. Nice homecoming for Gonzalez. He's done a lot over his career, wants to become a 5-weight world champion. I don't know, the wheels have got to fall off at some point. He's 37. That is like ancient in dog years for those guys who've started off at kind of minimum weight, flyweight like he did. Talking about a fight with Bam Rodriguez. Good cash out fight for him, a cash out, at the end of his career to see him later, because the way Rodriguez is fighting at the moment, I don't see anybody beating him, especially even this aging version of Gonzalez. I just think Rodriguez's style, if you look at what Sorong Vizai did in those 2 fights against Gonzalez, I think that's Rodriguez with the youth as well on his side. His style's all wrong for Chocolatitos. But if Chocolatito gets that fight and it's his last big payday, then who would begrudge him it? No, nobody, because he's been a fantastic servant to the sport. But yeah, Barrera was no real challenge to him other than a homecoming opponent.
Well, and if he's thinking he wants to be a 5-weight, that means he needs to win one at 118.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
which then he's gonna have to bring him up with him. I don't know what he's gonna do, to be honest.
I don't, man. It'd be interesting, I guess, maybe to see him against Junto Nakatani.
Oh God, no, I don't know, man. That's that sort of Vizai hard punching southpaw style,
or the light punching in a way.
Yeah, the light punching. Well, I thought about Inoue myself, but I mean that's just surely a step too far now that he's campaigning so high up in weight. I mean, nah, that's too much.
No, I'm talking about the 118 brother, the one that doesn't punch, that doesn't have much bang.
Oh, sorry, yes, Takuma.
Takuma. Yeah, it's one of them was like a bigger than the rest of them. He fought like 154, I think. And then he had or maybe
Takuma's
he's not
improved, hasn't he, man? He stopped Ankayas, didn't he?
He did he stop him or did he just drop? No, he did.
He stopped him with a body shot, didn't he? Yeah. And then he beat somebody else in a fight recently. I can't remember who else he beat. Yeah,
and he got dropped in that one and came back and dominated that fight, I think, if I recall.
Possibly, I can't remember.
So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a few fights that are probably winnable for Gonzalez if he's still got 75% of what he was. We'll just have to see. He could take a pretty good shot. The only guy who really beat the crap out of him was Rungvisai.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So but let's see here. As I hear, there wasn't a whole lot else on that card, but we had a Pro Box card on Wednesday. Are you still faithful to the Pro Box?
I am, but I didn't see this one, unfortunately.
Well, that's a shame because you missed out on Nicholas Flaws, who, despite his 2 losses, is looking incredibly sharp.
I've seen him before, and he's good. I know I should have really got this one, but I didn't. I heard it was a good show, actually.
hell of a puncher, very athletic. He beat Alfredo Escarcega by a fourth round TKO. Kind of a surprise coming in here 10-0, but with only one stoppage. Katsuma Akitsugi, he ended up getting a TKO over Jesus Ramirez Rubio in the ninth round. I would watch this fight if I was you, Steve, because this Akitsugi is pretty cool. He's kind of he's not a big puncher, but he's busy, he's accurate, and he's got some nice kind of defensive wrinkles. He always seems to kind of stay in position. It's definitely worth catching up on Akitsugi. He kind of surprised me in this fight.
Yeah, hadn't recalled his name beforehand, but somebody was saying that he's sort of around world title level now. That was their assessment of someone who, has a good eye for a boxer. So I have to take their word for it. But no, I didn't manage to catch it just yet.
Well, that's I guess that's going to be your homework then, if you're willing to take any odds still. And then Najee Lopez, he was just beating the crap out of Steven Sumter. And then Sumter just kind of, walking the perimeter, trying to find some shots. And then he did find one. Found a huge left hand when he knocked Najee Lopez over, who just rolled over with it, did kind of a backward somersault, and was right back up, more surprised than he was hurt or stunned. And he came back and he won the last 4 rounds, most likely against Sumter. 2 judges only given Sumter that round where he scored the knockdown, another one finding another one in there for him. But Lopez definitely getting tested. He's lanky, 6'5" at light heavyweight. Those guys do tend to get chinned eventually by a shorter guy, but we'll see what happens. He's still a fun fighter, and definitely another solid card from Pro Box this week. So anybody who did not catch that one, I highly recommend getting over to YouTube and grabbing you some of that Pro Box action. Let's see here. I had a question actually that was sent in. I'm trying to think who sent it. I think it might have been Gary. Let's see here. Yes, sir. I do believe it is. Let's see. So the question is, I have heard a number of people respond to Shakur's performance last week, saying that those who find him boring would have hated watching Sweet Pea fight also. Whitaker is before my time watching boxing, and I have only watched a couple of his fights in full quite a while ago, so I'm not in position to have a strong opinion, but would love to hear the panel's opinion. Is Whitaker more loved now than he was when he was actually fighting? Thanks. That's a good question, and that was a bit before my time too, but from all the stuff I've watched of Whitaker, the crowd kind of got into it because he wasn't getting hit and he was doing it in a really stylish manner. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Steve?
No, exactly. That's the point I was going to say, and it's not an original thought because I heard it on a different podcast, and I can't. I listened and watched that many that I can't for the life of me remember who it was to give them the credit. But shout out! Somebody said the difference is exactly what you just said. Sweet Pea. Now, he might well have been, it was before my time as well, really. Rob would probably remember this better, but he was maybe loved in retrospect a bit more than he was at the time, but he did it in an entertaining manner, exactly. The moves, the shoulder rolls, the bouncing in and out, the head up and down, the clowning, he brought all that to the table. Whereas Stevenson, a lot of the time, just boxes within himself. He boxes in that amateur style, picking up points, which is great, but I think that he doesn't... He kind of he makes big promises and he talks as a superstar and a 3-weight world champion, but he doesn't really deliver those things in the ring. He doesn't go in and fight like he doesn't back up his mouth with performances, and that's fine. But he is what he is. He doesn't like to take risks. Is it because he doesn't like getting hit? Possibly. Is it because he doesn't want to look bad? Possibly. I don't know. But he's a young man getting paid very well. And the level of opposition that he's faced, as we said before, isn't all that great. But I think the fact that he boxes within himself a lot of the time, he does exactly what he needs to do to win. He neutralizes people, but he doesn't really back up what he says off air. The likes of Tank Davis, which I would say this, obviously, he goes out and he annihilates people. He destroys them and he brings that highlight reel knockout and that excitement, whereas Shakur hasn't really got this sort of definitive trait about him where it's like, oh yes, Shakur fight, man, let's go and watch him sort of box on the back foot against Edwin De Los Santos for 12 rounds, or sort of stand in the pocket against Artem Harutyunyan, who we'd never heard of a year ago before he kind of pushed Frank Martin close. Whereas Sweet Pea was doing it at the top level, and he was doing it with style as well, bobbing in and out, bringing the crowd in. Even if Shakur had done a bit of shithousery, you know, Harutyunyan misses him with a couple of shots, and he does the sort of hand on the head or stops dancing around the ring, would be something, would be a start. But I don't know who's going to take him on next. It'd be interesting to see. You'd think he would have a lot of suitors, but for the kind of money that he's asking for, because of the status that he perceives himself to be, and what he's delivering in return, i.e. people walking out visibly on the camera in round 12, who's going to pay all that kind of money for him if he's not going to take the risks? It's sink or swim for Shakur now. He's got the talent, but we're going to see exactly what he's hiding. But he needs to bring a bit of a gimmick to his game if he's going to separate himself from the Sweet Peas.
You know, and Steve, the guys really didn't work with me on this one last week, and I was disappointed. But as I see chatter from promoters online and in their various video clips, I'm getting more backup from them that the fight that is most interesting is William Zepeda against Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great fight. Well, I mean, we'll see. Well, Zepeda's going to force whatever's Shakur's hiding, which is just my talk. I'm not saying anybody else is thinking this, but he fights to me like he's trying to preserve something or hide something. That's the way I see it. And Zepeda will find you. He'll pull that out of you. I'm not saying Shakur would lose to Zepeda. I mean, he's that talented. You would imagine he would beat him and be able to outbox him. But Zepeda's going to be bringing something to the table that he hasn't seen before. Yeah, as in, like, he's going to be constantly throwing. Harutyunyan did it for a few rounds, and then he eased off because Shakur kept tagging him to the body hard and often, and he didn't have the gas tank to sustain it. If Zepeda can sustain that attack for 12 rounds, all of a sudden things become interesting. What's Shakur going to do? We've seen him in the past resort to low blows, to excessive holding. In the past, he hasn't got the power necessarily to keep somebody off. So there's all these question marks all of a sudden, and he seems open to the Zepeda fight. So if that means he has to sign with Golden Boy, then go ahead and do it. A lot of the promoters aren't going to let him off, though, with this, oh, you only sign with us for one fight and become your own man, because that can work both ways, as Devin Haney found out. He was his own man for years, flitting between first Showtime, then Top Rank, then Eddie, then Top Rank, then back to Eddie again. And then as soon as he lost that fight and the purse bids came for Sandor Martin, Eddie was like, you've got your own promotional company, haven't you? You're a man of your own. You go and bid for it, because I ain't paying that money. So Shakur needs to make sure he doesn't fall into that trap as well. But what I'm saying is Zepeda's going to make him work for 12 rounds. He's going to find out everything about Shakur, and he could well come through it. He could have the power to keep him off him. Zepeda's not infallible. He was hurt by somebody 2 or 3 fights ago. Someone had him quite badly wobbled.
Oh, yeah, he absolutely will get touched. Yeah,
exactly. So people have said before, is it Shakur's chin? Is it his lack of punch power that he's concerned about? Well, we'll see against Zepeda. If he can't punch hard enough to keep him off him, as I said just there a few minutes ago, he's going to have to come up with something else. He's going to have to keep constantly moving, keep spinning him, turning him. 36 minutes is a long time doing that. Is he going to resort to holding? Is he going to resort to dirty, dark arts, pushing the head down, things like that? There's a lot to find out about Shakur, and the fact he's a 3-weight world champion, we still don't know. There's a lot of things we still don't know about him.
Well, Zepeda is just such a vicious body puncher, and I would not imagine him to be so foolish as to abandon that and start headhunting all of a sudden against Shakur. I get the hunch that this is going to end up kind of like a Jose Luis Castillo Floyd Mayweather fight, and it's going to be hotly debated if it goes 12 rounds, because it's that kind of style matchup, and there's going to be a few kind of swingy rounds where Zepeda might outthrow Shakur by 30 punches, but Shakur, might be equal with him pretty much in landing, and it's going to be that kind of argument. I really look forward to that, and I think it's the fight that Stevenson needs to prove his mettle, and if he doesn't have what it takes, it definitely vaults William Zepeda to a strong place into the division. where him versus Tank, that's incredibly interesting fight. Although I tend to think that Tank would just fucking drill him, since I don't think he's going to be looking for William Zepeda that night.
No. Well, yeah. Put Shakur through the William Zepeda filter. Let's see if he comes out the other side, just like we did with Floyd. Floyd had many touch points throughout his career where he had to get through that next level, and he did. Corrales, Castillo, later on De La Hoya took him over to that next level of pay-per-view stardom. There was many touch points in all the great fighters' careers where they ascended to that next level. They got through a test. If Shakur comes out having beaten Zepeda, even in a Castillo fashion, over 12 rounds, and we all agree that it was, most of us can agree it was a fair enough decision, or it could have gone either way, etc., then we'll say, you know what, Shakur has moved on to that next level. He's defeated a very good fighter, and that's a touch point in his career ticked off now.
Absolutely. It's just the same. I mean, it's a Shakur against Davis fight is going to be intriguing if Shakur is able to get through a Zepeda fight. I think that this is one of those fights that's very necessary in the division in order to build the narrative for what the real big fight is, because you have these scattered pieces at 135 right now of some very talented fighters, and it's just a matter of kind of clearing the deck. I think to some degree or another, Davis against Lomachenko is going to do that. I don't like that fight for Loma, but I'm not his manager. I'm not his family. But Shakur needs to do something, and Zepeda needs to do something. He keeps knocking people over, but he's not getting the fights. So we shall see. But anyhow, we do have some fights coming up. I'm gonna get what's on the ESPN thing here first, and then we'll check over a good old box rec and see what might be going on that we missed. On Friday, we're going to have Alexis Rocha against Santiago Dominguez. That'll be available on DAZN. Card from Venezuela with Uzcata Gui against a TBA. God knows if you can find a way to watch that one. Then going to have, I think this could be a couple of interesting fights on this one. Kind of wish my man Andy was here for this. He's got a lot of that smaller fighter knowledge, but we'll do our best to pick through. But so on this is going to be on Saturday afternoon for you guys, I think. ESPN Plus for me over here, bright and early in the morning if I so choose to get up. I don't think I will. I just don't want to. Junto Nakatani against Vincent Astrolabio. This is actually a pretty decently interesting fight for Nakatani's 118-pound strap. Kosei Tanaka against Jonathan Rodriguez with Tanaka's 115-pound strap on the line. Then Riku Kano. I don't know if I've seen any of him against Anthony Olasquegas, who you might remember giving Kenshiro a good fight on short notice with a vacant flyweight title on the line there. And then Tenshin Nasukawa is keeping going on his boxing dreams, taking on Jonathan Rodriguez in his first 10-rounder at 122 pounds. This is a pretty damn decent card from Japan on Saturday, Steve.
Yeah, it is. It is a good one, actually. Just on Tenshin, first of all, the tension is rising because I saw him thinking he was a bit of a gimmick. There's two Jonathan Rodriguez's on the card, which is great. I was at a show in Belfast there recently. There's two Jack Turners, so that's always brilliant to try and work out who's who. But Tenshin. I was impressed with Tenshin, actually, considering he was a bit of a gimmick and he'd come from a different sport and he'd fought Mayweather and all that business. I thought
you have to. Mayweather makes you cry. You do have doubts about somebody.
I thought he put his shots together really nicely that night, actually. Kano, not familiar with him. Olasquega, remember him in that fight you mentioned, gave a good account of himself. I think he's based in Japan, even though he's from Los Angeles originally. Nakatani looks the business, doesn't he, man? Was it Santiago he fought against before, I think? Yeah, he looked really good against him, knocked him into the middle of next week. And then, who's he fighting against? BoxRec's so slow these days. I can't wait for the pages to load.
Let's see here. What one were you on there? Nakatani? He's fighting Vincent Astrolabio, who beat Guillermo Rigando.
Oh, yeah, I remember him fighting Maloney. That's right. Yeah, Potapov.
He's a decent fighter. He's decent.
Yeah, he's good. And then Tanaka against the other Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Oh, Rodriguez lost to Ancoyas. I did see that fight, actually. Tanaka's good. He's built back well since the Ioka fight. I think he'll beat Rodriguez though. He looks like he's tightened up his defense as well from what I've seen. This is a good card actually.
Yeah. It's not bad. At lunchtime for you guys, that's far better than 3:00 in the morning for me. So count your blessings, I guess.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Then there's some regular fights on this one. I guess we'll talk about it. This card. I don't know, Steve. And I know you can't say some of the things you might have not once said. So be kind. But this Jake Paul card. That's on a DAZN pay-per-view is pretty bad. Paul against Mike Perry, former MMA fighter. I think he was done some bare knuck. If I'm fair play to Paul for risking anything with that Tyson thing going, which is its own circus act, but big money-making circus act. Serrano keeping busy fighting Stevie Morgan. And she's doing this at 140 pounds, getting ready for that Taylor fight. Shadeja Green getting back going after losing to Franchon Cruz DAZN, taking on Natasha Spence. Let's see here. Then Tony Aguilar against Corey Marksman. I saw Marksman in a fight probably 5 months ago or something like that I thought he won and got the raw end of. If I recall, he was a pretty decent fighter, and you got to love that last name. Julio Cesar Chavez, I think Junior, I fucking hope, taking on Uriah Hall, 6 rounds at light heavyweight. God, I hope it's fucking Junior. It doesn't say Junior. Ashton Silva is staying busy taking on Lucas Roddy. And let's see here. Yeah, and that's, the other ones I wouldn't worry too much about. So I don't know. It's just... And I think it's like a $70 card over here, Steve.
Wow.
It ain't happening.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about Michael Perry. Paul's just keeping himself fit and busy, isn't he, for this Mike Tyson one? Shadeja Green was a lot more exciting when she was on that kind of unknown knockout run, and then she lost to Franchon, and we kind of know what she's at now. Is she going to be able to recapture that? I'm not sure. Amanda, I keep wanting to say Miranda for some reason. Amanda Serrano, keeping busy again before Katie had that eye injury and all. Hopefully that's all cleared up. Ashton Silva, I recognise his name. I thought that he was down to fight Floyd Schofield or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
what was going to happen. But because the Tyson Paul pay-per-view thing got scrapped, I think they're moving that to the to that card too. I think they're basically shifting as much from that card just to November that they can.
Oh, right, okay. So he's in against Lucas Bardi. I've seen him as well, actually. Yeah, he's 16-0 with 14 knockouts. And then Chavez, it's a bit of a comedy card, isn't it? Getting the Chavez, the name on there as well, and trying to put all these people together. Aguilar, I don't know who he is. Excuse me. Yeah, I think it's just a keep busy card to keep them on point for the big Netflix show at the end of the year, which you were referencing earlier.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's on DAZN though.
DAZN will pick up anything, won't they? I mean, Jake Paul was on Showtime constantly whenever he was on the rise, and then as soon as he lost that Tommy Fury fight, he's never been on Showtime since. Well, I know Showtime did away with boxing altogether, but if Paul was still winning instead of a draw, they'd have him on, make no mistake. Everything seems to go to DAZN whenever it's run its shelf life. Like you said, this one's on DAZN, but then the big one that everyone's interested in is on Netflix.
Yeah, I still have great doubts about what boxing is going to look like in the next few years, given all this. It's just, I don't know. Everything could end up on DAZN, but God, I mean, how high can they keep boosting their freaking fees and people keep paying it? I don't know. I have my doubts that this system is going to work very well at all going forward, but we'll see. Anyhow, let's see here. Actually, there's just going back real quick. We won't talk about it. I missed this on that Caracas Venezuela card. That Carlos Canizales, who we saw in the very good fight with Kenshiro Taraji recently, is taking on Ivan Garcia Balderas. I don't know anything about Balderas, but Canizales definitely impressed me in that fight that ended up in a draw. He was
brilliant. He was, yeah.
So let's see here. But there is a fight. I figured, why don't we end with this one? We'll keep it domestic, even though all the guys are busy watching their football right now. But we have a card that is going to be coming up from Birmingham. This is going to be on BT Sport. The rematch. Nathan Heaney, Brad Pauls, that first one, a hell of a freaking scrap right there. Pauls definitely almost pulled that one out. Ashley Lane against Andrew Kane with the British Bantamweight and also the Commonwealth Bantamweight title on the line. Chantel Cameron against Alham Mekhaled. We've seen her a few times, decent enough fighter. Owen Cooper, undefeated, taking on Echo Esserman. And let's see how deep do we want to go. This one might be okay. Let's see here. We got Zach Parker and Jack Arnfield, and then Solomon Dakers taking on Michael Webster. I believe Webster is a late replacement for David Adelaide.
Yeah.
Oh, and Shabazz Massoud is on that one too, but it looks like the guy he's in is no great shakes. At least 6 losses in a row.
Yeah, I think we'll just see what stands out to me here. Yeah, Solomon Dakers, you're right, was supposed to fight David Adelaide. Adelaide pulled out, so he's fighting Webster, which might be a rematch. Is it a rematch? Yeah, I think it is a rematch actually, where Dakers beat him a few fights ago. The heavily tanned Michael Webster gave a good account of himself, and I think just ran out of steam a little bit towards the end of the fight. Zach Parker is back after losing to John Ryder. He's in against Jack Arnfield, who's a bit of a name from the past. Also fought John Ryder, I think, at one point. A staple of that kind of British middleweight scene in and around. He's making a comeback. We also have Ezra Taylor as a decent fighter. Owen Cooper, he knocked out Ethan James, I want to say off the top of my head, in Battle of Undefeated last time out. It looked really, really good, actually. And it'll be an interesting test, this 10-rounder English title against Echo Esserman, who has really done things the hard way, and now he's fighting back for the English title. He was obviously British and Commonwealth titleist for a long time, lost to Harry Scarf. Just when Esserman felt like he was on the verge of sort of getting up towards that world level, Scarf went on to fight Karen, who had fought Ennis before. Esserman might have thought, I don't know, the ship might have sailed for poor Echo. I think he's left all his best work on that big long run he went on.
He looked a lot slower that in defeat, didn't he? He was still trying, but it was like he was doing the same thing, walking through mud.
Yeah, no, exactly, absolutely. But I do feel sorry for him because he went on that sort of run. He was an unfancied fighter from Nottingham, beat Jenkins for the British and Commonwealth, wins over Danny Ball, Darren Tetley, who's been on the pod, Samuel Antwi, Chris Congo, good fighter, has shown since. So he's beaten Florian Marku, Esserman, and then he got that fight with Scarf just when he was about to kind of cash in all that hard work. And now, as I said, he's back to English title level. Will he still have the motivation? He always traded on his fitness and his strength. And as you said, he looked quite slow and sluggish. Although Scarf cannot do that to you. He is a bit of a tricky mover. So it'll be interesting what Echo has left in the tank here, really, on this one. Chantel signed with Frank now. Went over to Ireland twice. Wasn't too happy about that. No talk of a third Katie fight. And now she's found a bit of a natural home with Frank, hopefully. Andrew Kane, his only loss is to Baluta. He's a bit of a puncher, good fighter. And this is a fairy tale story for Ashley Lane, who's the British and Commonwealth champion. He's having a bit of a Chris Edwards renaissance to his career. Fans of years gone by will remember Chris Edwards, even though he had more losses than wins, I think. He went on a sort of British title run towards the end of his career. And he passed away a few years ago, actually. But Ashley Lane has a bit of an upset win over Chris Bourke, and now he's defending those titles against Kane, so hopefully he gets a good payday. He's been on the beat for a while. And then, as you referenced, Nathan Heaney against Brad Pauls. Heaney getting that good win over Denzel Bentley. Pauls fit, strong, been in around that British title level for a while. I think it'll be another good fight. I think Heaney will probably get over the line this time, probably have that bit of extra experience and know-how, and maybe Paul's left everything he had that night, but we just don't know. I think it'll be a similar fight to the first one, actually. Close, competitive. Good card, all in all. These magnificent sevens, I think Frank's won about 3 or 4 of them now. The first one had Nathan Cleverly on and Enzo Macronelli and Matthew Macklin, and he seems to be pushing them out, and they're doing quite well in Birmingham, so good luck to him. Yeah, it'd be a good night on Saturday. I'm looking forward to this card.
Is Heaney going to come out to Tom Jones again?
He might do. I don't know. He loves it, doesn't he? With the old, it's the link to Stoke Football Club and all. And Heaney is someone who's really gone above and beyond. Very fit, very strong, real bond with his head corner man. and he wants that fight in Stokes football ground. I don't think he's quite going. Well, he's not going to make it for this summer. Obviously, it would have needed to be planned well in advance. If he can keep winning, you just never know. Bentley, who he's beaten, had gone on before to fight old Alim Honolulu, and if the belt starts splitting at middleweight, Heaney gets another defense under his belt or whatever. All of a sudden, that Stoke homecoming could be there for him. But yeah, he's done things the hard way, so I don't begrudge him his success.
Well, good on him for chasing that dream. He's in for a rough one if Pauls is going to bring the same stuff he offered in that first fight, though. And that rematch could end up being the fight of the weekend here. And there's a lot more stuff that's coming up. And unfortunately, we're going to have to take next Sunday off, I do believe. Actually, God, you never know with everybody taking it off. I might just call them in. But we'll have Joe Joyce and Derek Chisora on the 27th. Clarissa Shields is going to be in action as well. But obviously the fights we're most excited about is going to be Terrence Crawford and Israel Matrimov, that card from Los Angeles on August 3rd. So look forward to that one. That's going to be a pretty big event. But I would like to thank Steve Wellings for coming in here and giving me a chance to talk to somebody that wasn't myself. Because I think that if I did it for like more than 20 minutes, that probably would have qualified me as just being crazy. And I don't think that's a good thing at all. So Steve and everybody can check out Steve Wellings' work with Boxing News. He is their online editor. Is there anything you want to plug right now that's going on over there, Steve?
No, not really. We're just working away every week. Boxing News means there's plenty of news going on, lots of articles going up, boxingnewsonline.net. I'm sure all the hardcores and everyone who listens to this will be already tuning in. So, yeah, it's good to come back, chat with Matty, hopefully come back in the future and speak to the boys as well. I had been intending to do it before now, but, yeah, busy. So going over to Boxing News, and thanks to everyone listening for supporting the pod and supporting the guys, doing a great job. I do listen every week in still, so it is a labour of love, and Matty and the lads are doing a great job. So long may it continue.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Hopefully it does continue, because if it's just me, that'll be the end of it. But anyways, I would like to thank Steve for coming on. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us today. Real quick, I bet I could even run through those. We had Beat Bop Boop, I know, was in there. Balls Deep, what a name. JDM, Simon Hill, Diesel 754, Harvey RS 750, John Trounson, and let's see here, and Andrew Thicket stopped in to ask, is it coming home? No, it's not coming home, Andrew. You guys don't own everything. If it's home is Madrid, maybe. So anyhow,
well, they're losing anyway. England are losing. So
yeah, I see this. So, but you folks have yourself a fantastic week ahead, and we'll catch you here in a couple more weeks on the next edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. Until then, I've been your host, Matt DiGianardo. Have a fine week, and everybody, use your heads before you act, please.
We'll never forget.
I think that's good happening.
Go to animals!
We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep. You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Stiltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love Boxing Asylum. It's as simple as that.